Hello. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It's Bruno Gama here, founder of the Dads on Fire project. I'm happy, excited to have another amazing guest here in the show. But before I bring my guest, I just want to share a quick story that happened today. I'm here in Brazil getting ready for my daughter baptization. I think that's how you say in English. And I was with my wife probably like 30 minutes ago, and we are giving her some real food, some banana with some avocado. And a thought popped to my head, just like, why is that most parents, we give real food to our kids when they are babies? Like, we just know that, well, banana, avocado, those things are healthy for them, so we're going to give them. But at the same time, we don't treat sometimes ourselves the same way that we treat our baby. We don't eat real food. And I was just thinking about this, and I actually did a short video on Instagram about this stuff, because I truly believe that, guys, we have to take care of ourselves first so that we can actually help everybody else out there, or our family, our kids. If we are not healthy ourselves, it's going to be hard to do the things that you really want to do in this life. And that's why I'm excited to be here today, because I have a special guest. His name is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, and I think he's already here live with me. Are you here, Anthony?
I am here, Bruno, ready to rock.
All right, man. Thank you so much for being here. First of all, man, I super appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. So before anything, man, tell us a little bit about what you do. Like, who is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi?
Yeah, I guess great question. I mean, and really layered. I think I would answer this as I'm a man on a mission to help busy dads live healthy for their families. I mean, you and I share an ethos for that, and that's why we're here. And I think it kind of comes back to what I would consider a little bit of my origin story. And that's because growing up, I essentially watched my dad put his health last because he thought he was putting our family first. You know, he basically worked himself to the bone. You know, he was an athlete growing up, but, you know, when life got busy and work got busy, he stopped eating healthy, stopped exercising, and he ended up dying at 42 years young, which was pretty much the half point of his life, as it should have been, right? And so I was 9 at the time. My little brother was 6. And that left such an imprint on my mind and my heart. And I learned so many lessons from watching dad lose his health, not the least of which is this one that's kind of really designed my life from this point. It's that as guys, health is the foundation of every single thing we love. When we let our health slip, everything else slips. You know, our ability to take care of our families and spend time with those we love, our ability to work and produce, our ability to feel good about ourselves. Health is the bedrock of all of that. So I've been pretty much on a mission since, you know, my 10th birthday, which was a couple months after dad passed, when my mom gifted me a pair of my dad's old dumbbells, and I started training and exercising. And that mission kind of is evolved into what we do over at the Fit Father Project, which is our mission, very similar to Dads on Fire, is like, how do we help busy guys with busy families and busy schedules make this health stuff simple and sustainable so that they can be the greatest version of themselves, get the weight off, keep it off. You know, this is the mission, and it's what I'm so fired up about, and it's what I do every single day.
Yeah, I love it. I was checking it out. Your website is really awesome. All the people, all the dads who you're helping on a day-to-day basis, man. So tell just a little bit more about the Fit Father project. What exactly are you doing there? Like you mentioned about this mission after your dad passing away. Just tell us a little bit more about the Fit Father project.
Yeah, so as I was going through medical school, I started to reflect on my dad's own life, and I'm like, man, why couldn't he get this health stuff figured out? What was it about was it the lack of solutions, the lack of his willpower? And I start really breaking down what do busy guys, particularly guys at the midpoint of life, like my dad in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, what do they need to be doing differently? And how could I support them? And I started reverse engineering. What do the healthiest men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s do? What are these key health habits? And how do we design this into a program that any busy guy can pick up? So what we do at the Fit Father Project, if any, is help walk men through step-by-step health transformations with their diet, their sleep, their exercise, their mindset. And we establish very, very, very high impact health habits, like the 5 or so things that you can do that produce the greatest amounts of results. And we install those into their life so they can lose the weight and keep it off. And we're proud. I mean, it works like crazy. We've helped over 10,000 fathers lose over 75,000 pounds so far. And we're looking forward to helping the next 10,000. And this is just what we do all day and what we specialize in.
Yeah, awesome. We're gonna get into this 5. I think there is 5 points really that makes this whole system that you have developed. We're gonna get there, but before this, man, let's go back. I think to when you are 9, you said, when you're 10 or 9 or 10, when your father, your dad passed away. Take us back to that year, man. What's changed in your life when your father passed away?
Well, I mean, the first thing is it shook the foundation of our entire family. I mean, I was 9, my brother was 6, my mom was in her late 30s. She was a couple years younger than my dad when he died at 42. And the first thing it did is it just made me, question, one, my relationship to God and faith, because I couldn't understand as a young kid, like, how it is even possible that, bad things can happen to good people. And then I'm the kind of guy who's a little, has a little bit of an inner fire, but it lit a fire under my ass to try to figure out, how do I stay healthy for my mom and little brother? Because I was the man of the household now. How do I take care of them? So in my 9-year-old brain, my idea was that, I'm going to take these weights that my dad gifted me essentially, and I was going to do my push-ups, my sit-ups, and eat my broccoli because I wanted to become stronger than cancer. That was my 9-year-old mentality. And ultimately, what I also learned when everything was spinning out of control in my life, and I think this is very relevant to everybody out there right now, is that exercise and health was one of the only things that could give me a sense of control back. Because when it comes to health, when you control the variables, the inputs, the tangible things, the eating, the exercise, the sleep, you get a tangible output. And for me, in my little 9-year-old brain, that was control. That function was control. If I do this thing, I get this result. And there's so much power in that, because if we can create this kind of equation in one area of our life, we can duplicate it in other areas. And as I began to get stronger, to feel better, became less depressed, my whole life began to blossom. And I found a sense of meaning from a very young age. So I've been driven by that mission ever since. And pretty much all the best things about my life right now were born out of the seeds of that pain and that turmoil. And I think there's a lot of lessons for all of us in our lives to be able to find the blessings in the pain, and to really understand how foundational health is, and that we can turn it around no matter where we're at right now.
Yeah, no, I love what you just mentioned about that. We can take the things related to fitness and to diet and everything related to health and apply in all the areas of our lives. So, man, why do you think, Anthony, why is that we have so many dads, not just dads, it is really the whole society suffering from being overweight, for not just that, bigger than that, chronic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, depression, lack of libido, so many things happening to our society. And especially we are talking here specifically to the dads listening or watching us right now. Why is this happening to our society? And it's not just in the US. You are in the US. I live in New York. I'm currently right now in Brazil. And in Brazil is the same thing. Every time I come back to Brazil, I'm a very observing guy. Like I like to watch people on a good way. And I see like more people and more just getting more overweight. Yes, but there is this lack of energy. There is this lack of vitality. When you look into their eyes, into their skins, there is, things are not looking good. And what is your take? I know this could be taking the whole show here, Ben, but what is your opinion on that?
Well, all those things we just described are symptoms. They're symptoms of a root cause. And in a sense, we have a culture that is always trying to attack those symptoms. We're trying to attack the energy problem. We're trying to attack the reason our skin lacks vitality. We're trying to attack the reason why we're storing belly fat. And all those are symptoms of the fact that we're not healthy internally. And this is a key point here. It's certainly not a lack of information about why people are not living healthy, because we know that the salmon is healthier than the burger on the dinner menu. It comes down to, how do we actually pick and order the salmon, not the burger? So there's certainly a psychological component here to this, and how do we actually create the behaviors and the structures and rewire our neuro associations around health to make it easier. But there's also some deeper biochemical stuff that comes down to a lot of the framework that we approach in terms of not just the importance of fixing the diet, but also doing an audit on the sleep, doing an audit on how the hormones are functioning optimally. So there's a lot of variables at play here. But for me, I'm always looking at how do we attack the problem at the root cause and not put Band-Aid symptoms on a problem that's very complex. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that the health information that most guys are consuming is not simple and it's not sustainable. And that's why we have so many people who fail on yo-yo diets. Listen, any monkey can lose 40 pounds on a cut all your carbs out diet. But how many people can actually sustain that type of approach? And the problem is we have a whole culture of people that have been burned and frustrated because they've been on this roller coaster so many times that they lose a little bit of hope. And where I want to come with our team and guys like you is we come in and say, hey, actually, there's a better approach. It's going to take a deeper cut at things. Yes, we're going to look at your diet. Yes, we're going to look at your nutrition, your sleep, your exercise. We're also going to get into some deeper stuff, into your psychology, into your motivation. We're going to really wrap this up into a whole lifestyle-based plan, and then you'll see sustainable results. So it could be the fact that we have a culture that wants to look for a quick fix. It could be the fact that there's not a lot of good solutions out there. And it comes down to weight loss is a multifaceted problem. And I know we talked about health in general, but I do feel that for the vast majority of guys, losing 30 pounds and keeping it off could be one of the best things they could do for their health.
Dude, I love your message here. And I was thinking, because you're a doctor, and why, before we getting into the 5 pillars that, guys, we're going to get soon here, but why do you think that we don't have enough doctors like yourself who are looking for the root cause of the problem, who are just prescribing medication? And, you know, I let you tell more about this, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big problem. And I don't think that it's because we have bad doctors. It's because we have a broken system. At least in the United States, what I can speak to, I'm not familiar with Brazil, but our medical system was set up to be a sick care system. It's set up to be reactive to health problems. And a lot of it comes down to, too, how we have big insurance companies that kind of dictate how certain doctors can practice. And look, Bruno, if you come into my office and we only have 10 minutes together in an office visit, because that's how much time I can spend with you, because I'm only going to be reimbursed X number of dollars, and I know you have high blood pressure and high cholesterol, perhaps the best thing I could do for you in that moment is to prescribe you some kind of medication, because it takes a lot more education and a lot more time and touch points that you and I could sit down for an hour and get to the real bottom of how your diet and your sleep and your exercise is affecting those parameters with your health. So we have a system that is one, reactive, to the sickness itself. And two, a lot of doctors just don't have enough time in office visits to necessarily go and deep dive into these things. And this is why alternative education and guys who are taking their health into their own hands and becoming the executives of their health are going online to YouTube, to Google, to podcasts like this, to Facebook, to get deeper cuts of information. Because on YouTube, you can listen to a video of you or me talk for 15 minutes on a deep level topic and come out and get the action steps. That can't happen in many doctors' offices, and it should. And I hope that it changes. It's just not currently the model right now.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, man. So, Dr. Anthony, let's get into this. Let's get into these 5 pillars that you have inside of the Fit Father project. Let's start with the growth mindset. Why it is important for us to take care of our mindset as well? Because, hey, man, come on, you just know it's all about exercise and nutrition, man. Why are you talking about growth mindset here?
Yeah, so it's like it almost seems counterintuitive, because when guys want to get healthier, they think the best thing is to get into the gym. They think the best thing is to get on the diet plan. But we know how important psychology is to sticking to diets. And we know that the way we train our brains and the way we create neuroassociations around our health can either make health seem like it's something that's easy and effortless, or something that's we're pushing a ball uphill. There are people who love going to the gym. They didn't always love it necessarily. And there are people that absolutely loathe it. What's the difference? Well, these two different types of people have different neuroassociations around what exercise means to them. So my thing is, the first thing we want to do is condition the brain itself to create new associations to these health habits, so that we don't have as much friction in the routine. So this is why we lead all guys through a vision and mission statement exercise before they start the diet or the workouts, where they get very clear on where they want to go with their health, why it's essential for them on a deep emotional level, and what are the deep reasons they want to be healthy, far beyond just the aesthetic if they want to look a certain way. We tie it back to their families. Why do they want to show up as a healthier version of themselves? What are the benefits that are going to happen in their life with their finances, their family, their relationships, their hobbies, their energy, their confidence, like all these different areas. So we give the brain so many different leverage points to relate to health in a different way, where it's not just about the abs. It might even be about your paycheck. Because we know that when you live healthier and you eat better, if that's important to you, you're going to perform better at work. So we create the neuroassociations on the positive side, but the brain is highly motivated to both seek pleasure and avoid pain. So how can we use that neurochemistry to our advantage and say, what are the massive costs that how we're currently operating is affecting our life. And so we really take a deep dive and look at, okay, the way I'm currently behaving with my health and my body, what are the costs in all these domains in life? Again, the same areas, my finances, my family, my time, my relationships, my personal self-confidence. So we got a little bit of a carrot and a stick. And these are two levers that help our brain move. We move away from pain and towards pleasure. So we can get very clear about these, get clear about our core values and what our current behaviors are costing us. It's going to be so much easier when we implement a diet on top of that kind of brain framework that we're going to stick to it so much more easily. We're going to remove a lot of the friction because now we have a deep why, a deep reason to stay healthy. Like for me, and this will be the last thing I say here on this, is I've always had such a deep why because I saw my dad literally die. And so I've always known that this is why this health stuff's important. It hasn't been about the biceps to the abs. So I've been able to stay on track. So what is your why? And how do we find that before we start talking about foods, kale, broccoli, and sit-ups and any of that crap?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, you mentioned so many important points and reminded me this past Sunday here in Brazil, it was Father's Day actually. And it was dinner time around 8 or 9. I had my dinner. I went to my wife. I just kissed her without even thinking. This just happened like without me thinking, right? I kissed her. I put my shoes on and I went outside. It's winter time here. It's cold. I went to the park and I started doing some high intensity interval training there by myself. And I was thinking like, how the hell this happened to me right now? It's Father's Day. It's cold. There is nobody on the streets here. How I end up here? And a light bulb came to like this moment. Was like, man, it's just because this is who I am. This is part of my identity. I just do this naturally, like without even thinking about. At the other hand, I know that there is a lot of people who see, like you mentioned in the beginning of this conversation here, see going to the gym as suffering, or see like eating healthy as just not like sustainable, or something that they're gonna have to get away from other pleasure in their lives and stuff like that. So how do we change someone's identity who has been growing throughout life, or maybe as a kid or as an adult itself? Like, how do we do? And you mentioned about the why. I think that's an important thing. What else besides having a strong why?
Yeah, so certainly the why and the specific habits I talked about of not the habits, I should say, but the journaling exercise of getting very clear about the pleasure and the pain of the change. Another useful tip would be to write down your guiding principles and core values. Like, what are the things that are important to you right now, Bruno? What do you stand for? Family certainly is a core value for you. Health is certainly a core value. I'm sure mission and helping men is a core value for you. How does the way you eat and exercise relate to those core values? How do you tie everything back in terms of these habits you want to instill to your foundational core values? Because if there's anything about humans, we want to be psychologically consistent with the things we think we stand for. So if we can make very clear associations between what we want to do with our behaviors, with the things that already exist in an identity level, then we can make massive change. So a lot of this comes down to some of these journaling exercises. We walk guys through a very structured process, getting clear about the pain, the pleasure, the core values, and how these different behaviors tie back to that. But oftentimes it's going to take either putting on some headphones and your favorite music and doing some reflection, getting out that journal and writing down some of these questions. These are there's stepwise questions, and we can definitely go deeper on this. But these are just some beginning points where guys can start to do the reflection. And there's not a right or wrong answer, but I would say if you're listening to this and you're not clear on what your core values are and how your health habits relate to that, I'd probably start to do some investigation today, or at least this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So let's talk about the second pillar here, which is health. So what is inside of the pillar called health for you?
Well, so for me, I'm gonna change for the purpose of this conversation the second pillar not to health, but to sleep itself. And this is important because I think when a lot of guys are trying to get healthier, they think, again, we need to run to the diet and the exercise. But a lot of guys don't realize how pivotal sleep is. Sleep literally is the domino that causes the whole cascade of metabolic hormones that control your metabolism, your hunger, your energy levels. And so many guys are trying to lose weight on a lifestyle plan where they're not sleeping enough. And what we know from the research is that people who start diets and workout programs who are not sleeping enough, which I'm going to define as less than 6 hours, is they lose muscle and not fat. and they do not keep the weight off long term. And cortisol is chronically high. They do not process carbs as well. So this is why before we even get into the diet again, we've made sure we done the mindset stuff and we get into the sleep audit. How do we optimize your sleep? And it's something that not enough guys do foundationally. And what are we really trying to do here, Bruno, in the context of the situation? We're trying to build the foundation of success. So when we do go to the diet or the workouts, everything has less friction and it works effortlessly. The same diet that works with a plan with low sleep is going to be almost twice as effective. And how do we even quantify it with a guy who's sleeping properly? So we got to start there. We got to remove the obstacles to success. And for a lot of guys who are very busy and have in their minds this kind of hero complex where I'm going to cut down and miss sleep because I want to go to the gym, I would rather have you skip the workout and sleep and eat healthy than the other way around. We have guys that do not exercise at all and lose 50 plus pounds because they sleep and they eat and they take a daily walk. Like, it's very possible. So it's just like exercise is important. I don't want to bang on exercise all the time, but it's the order of importance. We need to know the hierarchy of things you need to do first.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing. I really love this message because it's funny. We talk about the same things inside of the Dads on Fire project. Unbelievable. So do you have any tips that comes to your minds when trying to improve the quality of their sleep? Because not just the time, right? It's also the quality.
Yeah, time and quality, huge. So a couple things. Yeah, let's definitely dive into that quickly. So I think one of the best things we can do with sleep is create very structured, bookended routines to our mornings and our evenings. And a lot of guys don't realize that good sleep actually starts in the morning. Little counterintuitive. We think of sleep as a nighttime activity, but really when we're talking about sleep, we're talking about your body's whole circadian rhythm in general, how your body's regulating this rhythm of energy in the morning, decreasing at night. And this rhythm controls all of our hormones. And here's something a lot of guys don't necessarily know, but the people have heard of this sleep hormone melatonin. And what happens is when the sun goes down at night and light dims, that triggers our brains to secrete melatonin, which makes us sleepy and relaxes our body. But a lot of guys don't know that sunlight directly in the eyes in the morning actually generates and creates the melatonin to be secreted later at night. And too many of us, so we get up, we don't get natural sunlight, and we go throughout our days, and we're exposed to a lot of artificial blue light from our phones, our computer screens, and we're totally out of sync with this natural circadian balance. So one huge health habit that we have guys do with sleep is get outside between the hours of 6 a.m. and noon and get at least 10, 15 minutes of natural sunlight in their eyes. So that's one huge thing, because that actually creates the serotonin. Sunlight actually secretes serotonin that turns into melatonin later in the day. Huge. And I'm not sure if you talk about it with the guys, but it's really big and it's new sleep research. The next thing is watching out for these computer screens. They kick off a lot of this specific light frequency called blue light that disrupts melatonin production. And so we know that you can throw, Apple, for example, one of the biggest companies, they know that they put around, a couple 100 million iPhones into people's hands. And recently they released the update with night shift mode. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, right? But it cuts the blue light out of the screens at night. And many people don't know how damaging blue light is. Apple certainly knows. That's why they released this kind of update. But we want to cut the blue light out of the screens. And at night, we want a structured wind down ritual that typically involves cutting the computer, the TV screens off, getting a book out, drinking some herbal tea, doing some gratitude journaling, pre-planning your next day, some of these things to help close these cognitive loops that keep us up at night and to cut out that blue light. So we could actually spend a whole day talking about sleep, but these are some simple and actionable things that are good starting points.
Yeah. Sleep is a huge subject. We have a whole class. It's called the 14 Steps to Sleep Like a Baby, even though babies don't sleep well.
Yeah,
I don't know why I put this name. Like I should go back there and change. But I was this past week. I just did a video inside of the Facebook group about the 3 tips. Just like you said, it was funny because it was pretty much the same thing. It was like getting more more sunlight in the morning when you wake up, 5 to 10 minutes, and it doesn't have to be necessarily like sun. If there is no sun, just light and natural light. And then in the evening, trying to avoid all these artificial lights that we didn't have 150, 100, I don't know how many years ago the electricity was invented, but we didn't have. So our genes are still the same. And then 1 hour before going to bed, before your bedtime, it's just time to shut off all this distraction that we have, TV, cell phone, like we mentioned, and it's time to be with yourself, with your kids, maybe have some sex or whatever. It's just something like that, right? So it's really good advice here, brother. So let's move on a little bit from sleep. which is a huge topic. I know. So what's your philosophy around nutrition and like diet and stuff like that? What do you
Yeah.
like in a nutshell? I know this could be another whole episode, but in a nutshell, what is your philosophy?
My philosophy is if your eating plan is not simple or sustainable, it's not an option at all. This is a foundational thing because if you look at the number of diets out there, we can take two extreme diets, right? Ketogenic diets are very popular right now. These super low carb, high fat, lower-ish protein diets. And on the other hand, we have a lot of people losing weight on ketogenic diets. Very restrictive. We're getting the carbs out of the diet. On the flip side, we have people who eat high carb, vegan, vegetarian diets who basically can be very low fat, almost 80% carbs, and they also lose weight. Okay, so what's going on? We have two extremely different diets. Both people lose weight. So we need to look at the principles that underlie all good diets. And in a nutshell, here's what they are. One, all good diets, especially for weight loss, need to be calorie controlled, meaning calories do matter. Despite the fact that we've had this backlash where people want to just, disregard calories. If you want to lose weight, you need to have a general idea of how many calories you're burning each day, and you need to create a calorie deficit. And I'm not saying that's the only part of weight loss. Calories aren't everything. There are so many different hormonal factors, but calories do matter. So we need to create a meal plan for you that enables you to roughly get the proper number of calories you need. But how do we do that? Well, we need to also figure out what is convenient for your schedule, because what the meal timing setup that might work for you, Bruno, might be different than me. We have different schedules. We might wake up at different times. You might like to eat more meals per day. I might like to eat less. And so we actually, instead of trying to fit any given person into a diet, jamming maybe a square peg into a round hole, let's actually reverse engineer and say, okay, what is natural for your work schedule? And let's give you a meal timing setup for that. So that's something we do at the Fit Father Project. When you get our meal plan, it's not like it says, hey, eat at these times. It says, here are 4 or 5 different meal timing setups. They all work. Which one's going to work best for you? And so you get something that actually fits the meal timing schedule. And that's important because meal timing does matter. It matters for controlling your blood sugar. It matters because it's going to fit into your schedule. And if you have a meal timing setup like, it used to be the old school bad nutrition advice, you need to eat every 2 hours, graze, snack to stoke your metabolism, right?
Right.
That ends up being unsustainable for people. And we also found out from the research, that actually doesn't matter. People intermittent fast and eat 1-2 meals per day. So we want to reverse engineer from the standpoint of your schedule. And I can tell you're burning to make a comment on this. So hop in there and then I'll continue with the principles. Mm-hmm. Did you have something to say on that? I wanted to add some.
Yeah, I was going to ask you why there is so many of these fad diets and why we tend to go towards them, really. Why we don't want to take the other routes, like you're mentioning about figure out what to do for your life.
Here's why. The reason there's so many fad diets is because there's a market for fad diets, because there's so many people that have failed on sustainable weight loss because they have tried fad diets, that there's a big health and fitness marketing engine that wants to convince people that this next thing is that silver bullet that's the answer to all the problems. Like certain diets end up being like the cure for this thing and that thing. And we create this whole culture where it's like the seesaw back and forth because people are frustrated and what they've tried in the past hasn't worked. So there's this yo-yo back and forth effect. The other thing is everyone's individually different. The diet that works for you may be different than the diet that works for me. And so if a certain individual found massive success with something like the ketogenic diet, heck yeah, they're going to be a proponent for it. And they're going to go tell the world that that's exactly what you should be doing. But it's not that simple. We're individually different. We're learning so much more from the field of nutrigenomics on how your genes might actually impact the kind of diet that's better for you than better for me. But that does not mean that there aren't core guiding principles. So for our approach here at the Fit Father Project, we like a balanced macronutrient approach, meaning protein, carbs, and fats, they're naturally found in foods for reasons. Our body needs them and for all different kinds of functions. So what we like to do is have a meal plan that's not restrictive. It's more balanced across the board, because what happens if you're on a super low fat diet, what are you going to crave? Well, probably avocados and oil. And if you're on a super high carb diet, what are you going to crave? Well, probably bacon and the avocado. You know what I mean? So like you're always going to crave the thing that you don't have. The brain is always looking for things that are scarce. So if we can just remove that scarcity from the get-go and have a balanced eating plan, it makes life a lot easier. So we tend to teach guys how to build these things we call perfect plates, which is basically like instead of moderating calories, let's look at a plate and put half of the plate is some kind of green veggie you love, a quarter protein, a quarter carbs. It might seem overly simplistic, but we've helped over 10,000 guys lose 75,000 pounds with some of these general eating guidelines, and it's not restrictive, and you can throw all different kinds of foods you love into that kind of equation.
Yeah, no, I love this approach as well. Balanced, for sure, brother. So let's move on. Let's talk about commitment. So what is the importance of this pillar called commitment for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, it's easy to do something one time. It's a little harder to do it twice. It gets much harder to do it three, four, or five times. And so, how do we ensure that the any health plan that's going to work is the one that's ultimately consistent for you? So, how do we make sure that you stay on track? So, yes, part of that is commitment comes down to internal motivation, some of that foundational find your why work and create these new neuro associations around health. Yes, that's a bedrock of commitment, but you do not have to go this alone. And I know you found this with your guys. When you put men into community with other men with shared core values, it creates a container for commitment. And we want to rise to the occasion. And I don't know who said this quote, but a rising tide brings up all ships. And it's true. So how do we get plugged into a community with shared core values that helps make us keeping our commitments even easier? So I think this is research from the American Training Association, Personal Development Training Association. They showed that people who have scheduled accountability meetings are likely 90% more likely to reach their goals. And this is like you have an accountability partner with a scheduled meeting on the calendar each week. That creates accountability that makes commitment that much more likely. So how do we create structures in your environment with your habits in your community that makes the default staying committed instead of the default falling off track? So it's a personal game, but it's also an environment community game.
Wow. Yeah, no, love this. Yes, inside of the DOF system, really, we have these three pillars, right? The direction, the outlook, and the field. And field is the last one, which is all about the environment. And so it's the importance of having this accountability, the motivation, the support, because life is going to happen.
Yes.
Life is going to happen if we don't have the support. And especially us as dads, as men, we like to think that we can do everything on our own. We don't like to ask for help. But hey, nobody lives on an island by themselves, right? We need support. So fourth pillar I have here in front of me, if I'm not mistaken, it's called integrity. I love this. I did a whole course. I think 2 years ago, we had like 10 meetings throughout the whole year, just focusing on this topic of integrity, man. So share a little bit. What's your take on integrity?
Well, so I think integrity as a word doesn't get enough credit because people use it synonymous with honesty, and that's truly not what the word means. Integrity means wholeness. It means something is integral. It is contiguous. It is a part of a whole. And so for me, practically speaking, the way this hits the road is integrity comes down to a couple things. And then one is living congruently with your core values. So to presuppose that, we have to know what those core values are. And we also have to have the self-reflection capacity to say, are the things I'm doing in the world lining up and living in accordance with those core values? That's integrity. And we end up hearing these phrases like you're walking the walk, you're doing what the things that you say you're going to do. And so it takes there's a couple bigger superpowers that enable integrity to be there. The first one is deep reflection and clarity on what you actually stand for. And the second is this kind of observing self-reflection capacity where you can almost look back down on yourself and say, okay, are my behaviors lining up? And that requires some vulnerability and some honesty. And we have a deep sense. I think this is a beautiful thing about the human spirit. We have a deep sense when we really pull back the veil and reflect when we're living in and out of integrity. And I think for a lot of guys, and this is what we help them do with that foundational reflection work, is when they really reflect back on their lives and their health in particular, they realize that it's an area that they're living out of integrity. A lot of guys are absolute beasts in the boardroom, maybe in the bedroom, but like when it comes down to their own performance with their health, their actions might not be lining up with living in accordance to the greatest version of themselves and how they want to be showing up. So in a sense, not being healthy for a lot of men is an integrity issue. And so how do we get them back in integrity? Well, we align their behaviors with those core values. So it requires some clarity. And so I think integrity is not something you attack head on. It's something that you is an emergent property that comes from you living in a certain way and having the clarity on those values, creating the field that enables you to stay in integrity, and having those tactical structures and systems to enable those behaviors that will keep you in integrity be run more automatic. I hope that made sense.
Yeah. No, this reminded me, we have an exercise, and tell me what you think about this, man, because I'm curious about your take on this. It's about values, right? So we make a list of your values and we go over the list and we see like what you can tweak if you want to tweak anything, like up and down, whatever. And then we see, okay, let's say that your health, you didn't put as your first thing, the most important thing for you in terms of your value at this moment. And I say, hey, man, it's all good. There is no, I don't want you to be lying to yourself. I don't want you to putting your health as your biggest value right now if that's not really what is inside of you. But here is what I would like you to reflect. Think about this. All the other values of this list right now, let's say that you put your financial, your career, your family, your you're having fun, whatever, it's going to be elevated. All of those things are going to be elevated by you just taking care of your health at the same time. So what do you think about this? Because it's, yes, maybe you're not valuing your health, but understanding that by taking care of your health, everything else is going to be elevated as well.
Well, so I think you're spot on. Exactly what we talked about of creating new neuro associations, brain associations. What you're essentially doing in that exercise is creating associations between how health as one value relates to all these other values out here. And you make these kind of connections. And certain guys can have massive aha moments. And if you can tie health to the things that they might rate number 1 and number 2 on that list, now there's actually a good reason to go eat the broccoli and be healthy. So it's a phenomenal exercise. In fact, it's very similar to that journaling reflection exercise I talked about in the beginning. It's the core foundation. It's great. It's what are your values? Let's be honest about what they really are right now. And how does health particularly tie into that? And let's even take health off the table. Let's just take off like the behaviors of health. How does sleep tie into your ability to be a good father? How does eating healthy tie into your ability to get your career? Well, certainly when you eat healthy, your energy levels are stable, your mind is sharp. That's going to enable you to make better business decisions or to stay more focused, not have brain fog at 3, 4 p.m. So, man, I think it's the foundational exercise, and it's certainly more important than anyone reading another blog about what balance of macronutrients you need in your lunch meal. Like that stuff's like so less important in the context of this bigger discussion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. Like I really, I think I'm not even doing more like, hey, you should be eating these healthy foods here. And like, I just talk about mindset stuff. That's my passion at the moment, and behavior change and psychology and all of that stuff. Last pillar here, doctor, is called faith. And this one was like, oh, cool, man. Like this is a little different from what most people are talking about when talking about health, right? Hey, it's nutrition and fitness and, maybe a little bit of sleep on the table. But what is faith? Why is this important for you?
Well, for me, it comes down to my core belief and feeling that I believe that I am a spirit having a human experience in a sense. And if anything, my body is this vehicle that I've been blessed with from God that enables me to experience this be a human and carry out my great work in the world. So for me, there is a spiritual and cosmic significance to taking care of this vehicle. I get one. It was a gift that was given to me, and I feel a deep responsibility to honor my creator and to become the greatest version of myself by living out in such a way that I'm taking care of this thing and maximizing my life experience. Because, yes, so I'll stop there. For me, this is like, it is an integrity issue if I'm not taking care of my body, because I believe I was blessed with this spiritual vehicle, and I want to honor God by taking care of it, and it is bigger than me. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of guys is sometimes we're willing to not take care of ourselves when it's only us on the line. We can maybe put up with the body fat, we're okay with the belly, so we get tired sometimes. When we make something bigger than us, and for me, it ends up being an integrity issue for my relationship with God, then there's a much bigger reason to stay on track. And I think this is, regardless of your faith, I think this is a well-supported idea across all different kinds of scriptures and major religious traditions. And even if you're not religious, I think you could still find some meaning in the fact that your body is, even from like a Darwinian evolutionary perspective, your body is your ability to be fit to survive. So there's a lot of different bigger level reasons why you might want to relate to your body on a more spiritual, cosmic level. And so for me, faith is a guiding principle. I know we have a lot of members who are Christian and Catholic and Muslim, Jewish. It's just like whatever you connect with, let's tie that to your health and fitness goals, because this is bigger than all of us. And I have that deep sense.
Cool, man. Thank you for sharing that. So before I ask you where people can get in touch with you, what's the best way to find more about what you're doing into this planet, man? The last question that I have for you is, if you can just say one thing to the dad, to the father listening or watching us right now, who wants to live a Dad's on Fire life, what would you say to this dad?
Yeah, my advice would be incredibly simple. It's to get plugged into a system and community. Stop spinning your wheels by going at this alone. You do not have to. There is a brotherhood of people out there, whether it's Dads on Fire or the Fit Father Project, that have done the hard work to figure out what works, and give yourself the gift of plugging into a system. You do not have to go this alone. And a lot of times we have so many things we're trying to manage in other areas of our lives. We're trying to be fathers, bosses, workers, friends. And this is one area, if you want to improve, that you can end up becoming the athlete. You don't have to be the executive of this right now. You can get plugged into a system where it's just like, hey, do this, and have a coach to help walk you through the process. It's probably one of the most transformational things. And it's the reason why when guys say, hey, Dr. A, here's the money, I'm here, I'm in, tell me what to do, guide me, the willingness to be guided through a process, that's where a lot of transformation starts. And it's not to say you can't do this on your own, but results come from a system and a coach. And there's firmly a reason why I believe Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, had several different shooting coaches. All the best athletes have coaches. Why don't we have coaches for the areas of our lives where we want to be better? So I think it's a big part of advice, and just know that when you have somebody who can be your guide and has helped so many guys like you through the process, your chance of success is so much greater than it would be.
Yeah, great advice, man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything, man, here inside of this episode. So tell us, what's the best way to get in touch with you to find more about what you're doing?
So guys can go to fitfatherproject.com or Google Fit Father Project. We have more free information on our website. You know, over 500 articles, 500 videos that guys can like deep dive on, and just start to get to know us. I think from this conversation, if they're watching, you definitely know what we stand for. And I love particularly that, Bruno, you and I got to do this because I could tell just through this conversations evolving how many similar core values that we have and we share, which is amazing. But I would check out the Fit Father Project website. We have a free meal plan and a free workout. So if those are two areas you're struggling with, you can definitely download those, check those out. And that's where I would start. Head over to the Fit Father Project website, check out the stuff, and I'd love to connect with you guys further. And we have an amazing YouTube channel and Facebook page that are available as well.
Cool. Yes, absolutely, guys. So go check it out. Dr. Anthony stuff here on Fit Father Project. Go check it out, his YouTube channel as well, and his Facebook page. Until then, make sure to take action so that you can become a Dad's on Fire. I will see you on the next episode, my friends. Have an amazing day. Peace. Oh.